Last night's Craftsman Truck Series Championship race was one of the biggest embarrassments I have seen as a NASCAR fan. If you saw my initial reactions last night, you watched the video last night, I was very upset and very, very angry. What I'm going to do here today is I'm going to try to have a more calmer approach in this video. I might get a little upset and angry here, but I'm going to try to have a much calmer approach in this video. So make sure to tune in everything. So like I said last night, everything was just completely wrong. First, let's talk about the Fox broadcast. One of my biggest gripes I've had all year with the Fox broadcast, especially with the truck broadcast, is for a majority of the races this year, they have not been at the racetrack. That is unacceptable on Fox's standards. They should be always at the racetrack for every single race, including the championship race. And I understand that Fox wants to save money. I completely get that. But, a lot of people complain about the calls of these broadcasts. And I will say Jamie Little, she is a fantastic pit reporter. She is not a good lead commentator, in my honest opinion. What we saw could have been a much better broadcast if Jamie Little and them were at the track. Fox, in this next TV deal, you've got to be at the racetrack. And I knew they weren't going to be there. People were going to be saying, how do you know that they were not at the racetrack? Look, they had freaking curtain behind the TV stands that they had. I mean, come on. It's pretty obvious that they're not at the racetrack when you got curtain behind. Like, come on. Don't fool us, Fox. We completely know what exactly you're doing here. You're trying to save money. I get and understand. But they got to be at the racetrack, man. Just completely unacceptable and uncalled for on any certain standards. And this is not just a NASCAR thing. Things have been affecting either their hockey coverage or a couple other certain types of coverage in Fox's coverage right now. So, just unacceptable. Next, let's get to all the chaos that happened near the end of this race. So let's first begin with what happened with Corey Heim and Carson Hocevar. So obviously Corey Heim had the best truck in the field and had fresher tires than Carson Hocevar. And Carson Hocevar was clearly trying to get back by Corey Heim. Going into turn number one, Carson Hocevar just runs into the back of Corey Heim and completely turns him into the outside wall. Doesn't turn him the outside wall, but turns him and Stuart Friesen. Carson Hocevar, I'm not sure if he was really putting on an act for this situation or if he really meant it. I will say this after seeing everything happen and kind of having a few hours calm down from the situation. I don't think Carson Hocevar tried to intentionally wreck Corey Heim. I think he meant to get into him to move him up the racetrack. I don't think he really meant to wreck Corey Heim. And I want to say one thing about Carson Hocevar. I think Carson Hocevar is a very, very talented driver. Do not get me wrong. But there are times, time again, where Carson Hocevar will do things like this. To me, it's just unacceptable, especially since he's going cup racing next year. And by the way, he wrecked Ty Gibbs last week in Martinsville. That, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable on Carson Hocevar's behalf. Again, he felt terrible. He wanted to crawl. I think it was mentally out of the game because he lost a ton of positions on the next restart. But what Carson Hocevar did was really, really bad, affecting the championship. And then what Corey Heim did near the end of this race, I think, was much worse. Because not only did Corey Heim, because he went and actually wrecked Carson Hocevar by putting him outside wall, and Taylor Gray, who is a teammate of Corey Heim's, completely wrecked him, got involved in the wreck as well. What happened there was it affected the championship. We had a really good battle going between Grant Enfinger and Ben Rhodes. And I like Corey Heim, but I lost respect for Corey Heim. I think the guy's good, but in my opinion, that just is completely childish and classless. And it just continues to be a big issue I've had with the Truck Series for a while, is the lack of respect on the track. And there's a lot more lack of respect on the track that's been growing over time. And what Corey Heim did, I think, was much worse. And people are saying, well, he didn't admit it because if he admits it, he's probably going to get some sort of penalty, even though points really don't matter for the championship. Anyways, maybe he could just admit it to it. And after the race, basically said, I basically didn't even show remorse for Grant Enfinger. Grant Enfinger on the radio, justifiably, was really upset, and I completely understand him being upset with that because Grant Enfinger was cruising the championship. It would have been a really cool storyline for him to win. Then a lot more chaos happens, and the race just turns and delves into chaos. And the race goes all the way, I think, to like 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast when this race started at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's another thing I want to talk about, the 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What the hell was that? Like, come on. Like, really that late? Granted, next year it is 8 p.m. Eastern, so that is much better. But 10 p.m. Eastern, never do that again. Never do that again. Completely wrong and completely just, in my opinion. Going back to the main point of this, and then Ben Rhodes went on to win the championship. Here's been one of my biggest problems with this playoff format for the long time. I don't like the one race deciding of a champion. And even in my video coming out later this morning to early afternoon, you're going to hear that as well. I think one race decided champion is not a good way to decide a champion because there's too many outside factors that can play a role in this championship. And it proved itself tonight. I guess all the drivers basically saw what Steve Phelps said in a State of Sport address and were like, and hold my beer because I want to go absolutely nuts and absolutely crazy. And you saw on social media last night, you had a lot of drivers who were going off. Tyler Reddick called out Carson Hocevar. Denny Hamlin retweeted that. And Denny Hamlin also said this is what happens when you don't have a sport right now that doesn't really have any rules or procedures. I think Chris Buescher said something on social media. There were a lot of drivers in the industry who were calling out what we saw last night. I even saw Josh Berry, who is going to be a Cup driver next year. He was saying how embarrassing it was. And even Grant Enfinger was really upset with how everyone it delved into chaos. And that, like I said, was one of the most embarrassing NASCAR races I've ever witnessed in my entire life. As a NASCAR fan, we should be ashamed of ourselves. Not as fans, as the drivers should be ashamed of themselves. And Grant Enfinger, I'm with him on that one. Drivers absolutely should be ashamed. Congrats to Ben Rhodes, I guess, because Ben Rhodes really didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion. And also congratulations to Christian Eckes. I didn't think Christian Eckes did anything wrong. He actually won the race fair and square. I don't think Chase Purdy did anything wrong either. Chase Purdy raced him fair and square. I just cannot believe how this is what we decide as a champion. One of my suggestions going forward is you want to have the 4 championship drivers competing against each other, fine. Don't have one race to decide a champion. Have, in my opinion, a 2 or 3 round system. If you have 3 races to decide over the course of 3 races, you will have a much better outcome for the championship and more people will have respect for you. Or go back to the original chase format or just get back to the regular season format that we've always had, where the championship is completely fair and you don't have one race to decide a champion. It's just this is what you get when you have one race decided all, a winner-take-all situation, and you get crap like this. And it was just a complete mess last night. It was an embarrassment for NASCAR. It was an embarrassment for everybody. And it was just a complete and utter chaos last night. It was terrible. It was one of the worst NASCAR races I've ever seen. And I think it was the most embarrassing NASCAR race of all time. People say the 2008 All-State 400 Brickyard was one of the worst, and I completely agree. I think this was the worst truck race I've ever seen. And I've been watching NASCAR racing now for nearly 16 years. That was the worst race I've seen in my entire life. One of the worst I've ever seen. In any form of racing. Like, just completely embarrassing, completely uncalled for all the crap we saw tonight. And I don't think you're going to see that in the Xfinity Series race or the Truck Series, or Cup Series, I should say, for that matter, because I don't think the driver's going to race like complete assholes. I just don't think they're going to do that. It's just, I did not like what I saw. It was embarrassing, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable, and there has to be changes made to the Truck Series, in my opinion, if things are going to get better. Because last night was really, really bad. And again, I think it'll be the lowest point. And I said it last night on Twitter. That was one of the darkest days we've seen in NASCAR history. One of the darkest days and darkest days for sports in general. And then you had this stuff where NASCAR had to mess up on the restart zone. Yeah, they had to fix the restart zone, by the way, because it was in the wrong position. Shout out to Couch Racer on Twitter for pointing that out. There was so much with everything that was wrong last night, and it was completely unacceptable and completely called for everything we saw last night, in my honest opinion. So, that is going to take a special NASCAR video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support my Patreon as well. Links description below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about last night's Truck Series race and the embarrassment it was last night? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later today on the channel, I've got 2 more videos coming out. We'll be talking about the State of Sport address from yesterday, and we're also going to have the NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship video. And then on Sunday, of course, which is tomorrow, we'll have the NASCAR Cup Series Championship video dropping on the channel. The Monday, there might be a NASCAR news video dropping on the channel, but we'll have to wait and see. There's also going to be a silly season update dropping. If I don't do NASCAR news video on Monday, it will be on Tuesday. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.